Squiz Kids acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which we podcast, the Turrbal and Kombumerri people.
Squiz Kids!
It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids Today, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Bryce Corbett. It's Wednesday, February 26 in Squiz Kids Today. Queensland on Cyclone Watch. Ukraine's sad anniversary. The case of the golden toilet. And the blockbuster film you've never heard of. That's what's making news, kids style.
The Lowdown.
Batten down the hatches, Queenslanders. There's a cyclone called Alfred forming off the coast, and weather forecasters are not sure where it will head next. Cyclone Alfred was expected to form into a Category 3 cyclone by this morning, taking shape and building strength over the Coral Sea, the water above the Great Barrier Reef. There are 5 categories of cyclone, with Category 1 being the smallest and Category 5 being the biggest and most destructive. So Category 3 is starting to get up there. And while weather forecasters were yesterday saying there was a good chance Alfred would remain out at sea and head southeast away from the coastal towns of Mackay and Rockhampton, residents in those regional Queensland centres were nevertheless urged to stay alert. Because, cyclones are unpredictable things. And if you're keen to learn more about cyclones, how and why they happen, keep listening to our excellent Squiz Kids shortcut, which will play straight after this podcast. I've also stuck a link in today's episode notes if you want to have a listen later. Fun fact, while we call them cyclones here in Australia, in the United States they call them hurricanes, and in Japan they're known as typhoons. So there you go.
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in Ukraine, where they're marking an anniversary they wish they never had to. Monday marked 3 years to the day that Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So, what does that mean? It means that Russia, a huge country that takes up a large part of Eastern Europe and the Asian continent, tried to take over its much smaller neighbouring country, Ukraine, by sending in troops and tanks and firing missiles. For 3 years now, the two countries have been at war, which has been really difficult for the people of Ukraine, who, for the most part, are determined to defend their country. Leaders from lots of countries gathered in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, yesterday to mark the anniversary and show their support.
Pop Culture Corner.
Now, you're all probably much cooler than I am. And you all probably have your finger on the pop culture pulse more than I do. So maybe this isn't news to you, but a movie that I've never heard of has just become the highest grossing animated film of all time, beating out Inside Out 2 for the title. The movie is called Nizar 2, and it's all about a boy god who battles dragons to save the world. I've stuck a link to the trailer in today's episode notes. It's a movie that's made in China, which is where it has also made most of its money at the box office, some $1.7 billion since release. It's also doing really well here in Australia, so at least some of you must have seen it. It's now the 7th highest grossing film in the world, ever. Highest grossing means that it has sold the most tickets. And because I know you're wondering, the highest grossing films ever are the original Avatar, which sold $2.9 billion worth of tickets, and Avengers Endgame, which sold $2.7 billion worth of tickets. Good lord, that is a lot of popcorn and choc tops.
Believe it or not.
A court case has kicked off in London this week, aiming to solve once and for all the mystery of the missing golden toilet. Yes, you heard right, a golden toilet. This story begins about 10 years ago when an Italian artist made a toilet out of solid gold. Because it's art, baby. That toilet made its way to a castle in England where it went on display amongst other works of art. Until a bunch of thieves broke into the castle in the middle of the night 6 years ago and stole the toilet in a daring, dunny heist. Heist is a fancy word for a robbery. The men suspected of staging the robbery are all on trial in a court in Oxford this week. As for the dunny, well, it's never been recovered, with authorities believing it was probably melted down and sold off in smaller pieces. Maybe it was turned into gold necklaces and earrings. Imagine wearing a little bit of dunny jewellery around your neck.
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. What is the name of the cyclone that's forming off the coast of Queensland? Yes, that's right, it's called Alfred. Question number 2. How many years has the war been going on in Ukraine? Did you say 3? Well done to you. Question number 3. Which movie has Nezatu beaten to become the highest grossing animated film of all time? And I'll give you a hint, the movie I'm talking about has main characters including joy, anger, and disgust. Yes, of course, I'm talking about Inside Out 2.
Shout-outs.
It's Wednesday, February 26. On this day, in 1606, so 419 years ago, a Dutch explorer by the name of Willem Jans landed at Cape York Peninsula, the pointy bit at the top of Australia. And it was the first known European landing in Australia. Today is also a special day for these Squiz kids celebrating a birthday today. Gigi from Ballina, Hugo from Wagga Wagga, Felicity from Canberra, Owen from Ipswich, Erin from Denman Prospect, Ray from Lavender Bay, Julia from Turramurra, Lily from Templestowe, Felix from St Leonard's, Ava and Blaze from Parabadoo, Austin from Woollahra, and Henry from Dolan's Bay. And belated birthday shout-outs go to Zoe from Frankston South, Hunter from Rose Bay, Kaylin from Epping, Jack, Talisha and Layla Rose from Walkervale, and Iris, who's listening all the way over there in Brooklyn in New York City. I was only there last month. And classroom shout-outs today go to Class 5C with Ms. Tyers and also Mrs. Crop's class at the Willows State School in Townsville. The Year 4 Superstars with Miss Renata at Our Lady of the Sacred Heart School on Thursday Island. Class 4B with Mrs. Farrell at St Christopher's Primary School in Holsworthy. And finally to Class 3B from the Canadian International School in Phnom Penh in Cambodia. And a hearty hello to you all. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout-out, or if you're after a classroom shout-out, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au or fill out the form on our website. Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids today. Christy will be taking the reins tomorrow, and that's because I'll be travelling to Adelaide to take part in School's Day of the Adelaide Podfest. I'm hoping that I might get to meet a bunch of you Adelaide listeners while I'm down there. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out.